week. Dan the Man, what does that mean for this game?
Yeah, it's Saquon Barkley in the run game. Time to step up. This is an enormous loss for the Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody knows that in crunch time and go-to moments or gotta-have-it moments, third downs, the game winner or game sealer of last week, AJ's the guy that they kind of build their pass game around. No AJ, Devontae's still plenty capable, and a player like Dallas Goedert still plenty capable. But if there was ever a week up until this point, 8 weeks into the season, that the Eagles just desperately needed to get their run game going, to have their offensive line play significantly better, to have their star tailback take over a game, it's this one. This is a massive loss for the Eagles offense.
Yeah, all week we've been talking about how the Eagles finally leaned into that under center play action passing attack last week. I would argue that this injury makes it even more important to lean into that.
Yes.
Because you don't want to just count on A.J. Brown to win on one-on-one outside the way they so often do in the passing game. And by the way, Devontae Smith was on the receiving end of two of the biggest shot plays off of play action. He is phenomenal against zone coverage. I also think, and Marcus, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, that if that under center play action game gets going, it'll open things up in the run game because the linebackers will be more cognizant of getting beat down the field. And suddenly you see how play action pass is not only the run helping the pass can help the run, which, as Dan said, needs to be very improved in this game.
I agree with both of you all on that point, and that is the point, MK, is to give them enough signature change at the line of scrimmage to make sure you're creating space for Saquon before the ball is snapped. The other thing is this, too, y'all. Remember this. Saquon can be used as a pass catcher. First thing that came to my mind when A.J. Brown wasn't playing was, do you get to some of the screen game? Do you create some of the sleight of hand between Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley to make up potentially for some explosive plays? And we talked about this in the weeks previous. Find ways to get Saquon the ball in open space, which is one thing that I think has been missing as well, more than him just coming out of the backfield. This is an opportunity for Patullo to figure out ways to use Saquon Barkley to either dictate the way the defense is going to play everybody else or vice versa. Use everybody else to find space for Saquon. We just watched the San Francisco 49ers use Christian McCaffrey in that way to become a really prominent pass catcher in a win that they needed to have. I'm looking forward to see if Philly has any opportunity to do that with Saquon Barkley to either dictate coverage or make him a big part of the passing game as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, fella. I just don't think that's going to be who they are in such a short period of time as well. I know AJ didn't practice at all this week, but are they really going to kind of change their stripes? I just want to see with Kevin Patullo, I think your point of bringing his name up is huge. Will they move Devontae around just a little bit? I'm not saying you have to become the San Francisco 49ers or the Los Angeles Rams in that regard, but will they move him around just a little bit? I think there's two things that also I'd look for. Will they utilize Jalen's legs just a little bit more? And then will they utilize more RPOs just to get some cheap yards? I totally agree with Mina. This is the perfect time as well to go back under center, continue to create that part of your identity or whatnot, and see if you. I know Jordan Mailata talked about it this week. How much easier it is for them and their offensive linemen and the angles that they get to play with. Continue to lean on your play action because it helps lesser receivers get open. So that's the challenge. Will he do more of that, Kevin Patullo?
Dio, I agree with you on maybe not changing their stripes, but do you think there will be, and this is a question for you, do you think that having Saquon line up somewhere pre-snap wise and then move him back into an original position could change the picture and the look? Because I know if I was playing defense, it would, with a player of that caliber, us potentially not knowing where his alignment would be pre-snap most of the time.
Yeah, and I would do more of that, to your point, this week, because if you're the Giants, I think this would change your defensive plan some as well. You'd be way more willing to play a little bit more man coverage. You'd be way more willing to try and come after Jalen Hurts because man coverage and blitz, he looks to A.J. Brown. And so if you're the Eagles, just trying to gather some information defensively, specifically early in this game, of how the Giants are actually going to play you in those situational football moments, trying to gather that information utilizing Saquon could be very big.
He missed 4 games last season. They went 2-2. And when you take a look at our picks, and obviously this all happened before as we have an early gong. Listen, Eagles, we all think are going to avenge their loss to the Giants from a couple of weeks ago. Mina, any thought or any of you about changing with this news? Maybe going with the Giants?
I'm not changing it. And a big part of the reason why is Jalen Carter and Quinion Mitchell playing in this game. Their absence the last time these teams played was massive. Allowed them to pick on the Chiefs' secondary cornerbacks. Jalen Carter is the most important player on the defense. So I think the defense will put up a much better fight this time around.
Everybody good? Sticking with the Eagles?
We're good.
We're all
Yep.
good. All right. Let's move on because we have news on the Giants from Adam Schefter. The NFL fined the Giants $200,000, head coach Brian Daboll $100,000, and running back Cam Scatterbo $15,000 for violating concussion protocol. Remember, Daboll entered that blue tent in that first matchup with the Eagles a couple weeks ago, and Jackson Dart was being evaluated for a concussion. Some more news. Lamar Jackson has missed the last 2 Ravens games with a hamstring injury. Baltimore has fallen to 1-5. He was a full participant in practice today in terms of his status for Week 8 as they host the Bears. Here was John Harbaugh addressing his quarterback situation today.
I know this. He practiced today, full practice today, so that was good. And we'll see where we're at going forward. We're going to talk about it as we go and figure out what we got to do to try to win the game. I mean, that's really what we're going to try to do. You know, what's our best opportunity to win the football game on Sunday? Where does everybody stand, including number 8, Lamar, and anybody else? And that's just how it goes. And you do your best. And really, you could, I'm sure, when we do talk about it at length, you know, but it's not really a public conversation. And we're going to try to put our best team out there and play our best.
So we will see. Stand by. Courtney Cronin is on her way to Baltimore to cover the game. What can you tell us about Lamar this week in his preparation?
He was a full participant today, upgraded from limited on Wednesday and Thursday. During those practices, he took snaps behind Tyler Huntley, who is now QB2, by the way. It's not just Lamar Jackson that we're talking about here. They have a new backup who would play if Lamar cannot, but took snaps behind Huntley, behind Cooper Rush. And John Harbaugh did not want to say what he saw from Lamar Jackson, how he was moving in practice, but that's the key here. Somebody who has a hamstring injury, has not played since that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. How is he going to look when he's playing, if he's playing quarterback? I talked with Kevin Byard, Bears safety, about this week, and one of the things that he was trying to stress is that you want to make him move laterally, healthy or not, because if he can escape, especially going through the pocket, he's as dangerous of a runner as anybody on that team. And what the Bears are expecting is that they're going to get a heavy dose of Derrick Henry in this game, because that is what the Ravens need to lean on if Lamar is out there, not 100% healthy, or if it is a backup quarterback situation. They've got to get Henry going, because we saw that was successful in a loss to the Rams 2 weeks ago.
Right, you've got a team that's about to fall off a cliff facing a Bears team that has won 4 in a row. Mina, what do you want to see from that offense if Lamar is able to play?
Yeah, as Courtney alluded to this, you'd like to see the run game look better. Having Lamar merely in the backfield will help that from a numbers perspective. But the other thing that'll help is another player who I noticed is back at practice, Patrick Ricard. The Ravens have only run 4 plays this entire season with 2 backs on the field. That was 351 last year, and when they did so, they averaged nearly 6 yards a carry. Almost 10 yards, by the way, play action off of that. I think his return is huge, particularly in the run game. I think they've really suffered from his absence. But having both him and Lamar out there, I think is going to go a long way towards helping a Ravens rushing attack that's been fairly anemic so far this season.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident saying our show has kind of made it a point to realize the importance of Patrick Ricard over the last 3 or 4 years. He's not as important as Lamar, but he's as important as Lamar in what they want to do, you know? And so I completely agree with that. I would be looking for 20 to 25 play action passes in this game, kind of off Courtney's point that if you're the Bears, and whether it's Lamar, a banged up Lamar or whatnot, and you're thinking, well, here comes a heavy dose of Derrick Henry. If I were Baltimore early on and often in this game, you're going to get a ton of play action. With Kyler Gordon not going for the Bears and knowing how much they wanted to pressure him, more often than not, their pressures are 2 safety deep pressures. One of the ways that you could just absolutely rip, if you look at last night's football game, 2 safety pressures, is to play action pass over the middle of the field. So if I'm Baltimore, Lamar healthy, unhealthy, 100% not, you're getting 20 to 25 play action passes a game. I'm trying to hit a ton of in breakers.
All right, let's talk about that Bears defense, all right, that they'll be facing, because we have made so much, obviously, about Ben Johnson and all the improvements to their offense during this 4-game winning streak. In terms of their defense, though, they're allowing 20 fewer points per game over the last 4 games. They have 15 takeaways, by far the most in the NFL. And Swagoo, you think that there is a potential mismatch in this game? When we see the Bears on the offensive side, what are you watching for?
Yeah, I'm going with DeAndre Swift. I think he's become a big prominent part, and it's something that Ben Johnson wanted to finally get going. And you can see the explosive nature of the run game starting to creep his head back into it. Obviously, him coming from Detroit, the run game was a big part of that, but not just the run game. Jahmyr Gibbs was an intentional draft pick that me, Mina, and Dan sat on stage while the draft was going on and was like, what, a running back? But now we see what dividends that is paying. DeAndre Swift was thought of in that regard when he came out of college at the University of Georgia as one of those one-touch, one-cut, explosive play backs. And I think Ben Johnson is now starting to get a lot out of this run game in Chicago, but also getting a lot out of the individual skill set of DeAndre Swift, which I'm looking forward to seeing if they can continue this throughout the rest of the season. Because another way to develop your quarterback is to give him a weapon like that, either handing the ball off or out of the backfield where you can create explosive plays. And I think it goes a long way in Caleb Williams' success and comfort in playing a quarterback position as well.
So you know how Lamar Jackson is the only player on the Ravens injury report who carries a designation for this game. He is questionable. We'll see if he plays. The Bears injury report's a little bit more lengthy. And to Swagoo's point, real quick on DeAndre Swift, I talked to him earlier this week. He said that his groin injury that he's been working through in practice, he's questionable. That is a maintenance thing, so he is expected to play. However, some injury news here on the defensive side of the ball. They will be without starting cornerbacks Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. Rather, Kyler Gordon and Tyreek Stevenson. So Brisker and Kevin Byard,
that's
significant,
news, right?
And what this means for a defense that leads the league in takeaways right now, they want to continue to see that number go up. They're at 16. They're facing a team with a -7 turnover differential. That's second worst in the league. Going to be a big challenge to do that without 2 of your top cornerbacks, and we know that Jalen Johnson has not played since week 2. But it is a task that they're going to have to try to figure out with the players that they have. The one thing that players have stressed to me about the changes on defense and why that number is going up is that the position they're being put in. They're being coached to do it, but they're also being put in better position. Tremaine Edmonds, a linebacker who moved from Mike to Will a couple of weeks ago, it's yielded 3 interceptions so far in the season. So they'll try, even though they're injured, they're going to try to keep that number going.
Nobody knows the Bears better than you do, Courtney Cronin, an encyclopedia, and I'm so happy for you, at least that they're winning. Now, Courtney can't, she's reporting on the game, so she can't pick. Mina, however, is the only one on the Ravens. Mina, what do you know that we don't?
I mean, the Ravens are getting healthy at the wrong time, and it sounds like the Bears aren't. Another player we haven't talked about much, Roquan Smith getting back. I guess it's not really a revenge game, but gets to go back against his old team. I think that is massive for a defense that has really struggled this year to stop the run.
Yeah, that's a really good storyline in this one as well.
Vanderbilt at center stage. The atmosphere, as you would expect, living up to the hype.
Ooh, that's going to be fun. Nash Vegas tomorrow morning. All right, what about last night as we kicked off Week 8? The Chargers coming into this matchup, having lost 3 of their last 4 games and making a statement against the Vikings. First drive of the game, Justin Herbert connecting with a Rondé Gadsden on a 13-yard pass, and then finding the rookie tight end again on a 3rd goal on the 8th zone. It's an 8-yard touchdown. Chargers on top right away. Just over 4 minutes left in the second quarter. The Vikings are already trailing 14-3, 3rd and 2 at their own 47, and Carson Wentz is, wow, that was intended for Adam Thielen, but it's blocked by Tarheeb. Still, you see him grimacing, came in with a shoulder injury, really banged up in this one. And then Herbert connecting with Ladd McConkey, 27-yard touchdown. He's had 3 DDs in his last 4 games. It's a 21-3 ball game. And now the Chargers are up 24-10, leading wire to wire in this one. Second goal from the 6, Herbert scrambling, finding Trey Harris for the touchdown. He threw for 3 scores. He rushed for 62 yards, and the Chargers extend the lead to 31-10. Next drive for the Vikings, 1st and 10 on their own 43, and Wentz is looking for Justin Jefferson, but he's picked off by R.J. Mickens, the rookie who was in for Tony Jefferson, and the Chargers win 37-10. They go to 5-3 now. Didn't trail the entire game. Here was Jim Harbaugh in the locker room afterwards.
Well done, well done. Give each other a high five. I got one question for you. Who could possibly have it better than us? Nobody!
It's just frustrating, just going out there and performing the way we've been performing and not putting up points and not, getting stops. That's all a team effort, and we're just not doing enough.
Man, Dan, I mean, the Vikings were really disappointing on both sides of the ball. They're at 3-4. They're in the bottom of the NFC North. How do you view this loss in particular?
I think this is the most disappointing roster in football right now. This is an organization that this offseason spent the second most of free agent money in the NFL. And this was a roster that was built in many of our eyes to be like quarterback independent. And one, this offensive line cannot protect on a consistent basis at all. The interior of their offensive line is very poor. 2, this run defense has been ran all over this season, all over this year. And it happened again last night. The Chargers came out and just like, here comes 3 tight ends run game. Stop it. I'm shocked because I honestly thought that this team was built to say, if you just had average quarterback play, you're an NFC championship contender. Anybody that wants to tell me Carson Wentz is the issue right now in Minnesota, we can have a conversation and I'll tell you you're out of your mind. The quarterback is not the problem in Minnesota right now. J.J. McCarthy's not going to save them. Carson Wentz certainly is not going to save them. This roster is unbelievably disappointing right now.
Well, we've been for a few weeks having a conversation, and I've been on, keep Carson Wentz in that spot. And to your point, Dan, you can see some of the things happening with Carson Wentz that's not on him. But ultimately, this has put them back into what I believe the J.J. McCarthy, when he's back and healthy, get him going, right? Because I was thinking that this season was going to lead to them having some success, and you would have to think about, if we want to take Carson Wentz out of the situation, the way this team has been playing as a whole. But let me challenge everybody on this as well, and meaning D.O. follow along. This Brian Flores defense is pressure-based. It's hard to do that. I'm telling y'all, as a former defensive player in this league for a long time, it's hard to do that when your offense can't move the football, can't sustain drives, and put points on the board.
Yeah.
They actually give you an opportunity to be as aggressive. Now you see so much of this defense there in man-to-man. We've been talking about that a tremendous amount of time. And last year, when you had Sam Darnold and the crew putting up points, you had other offenses that felt like they needed to become explosive, and it laid into the hands of what Minnesota wanted to do defensively. But now when you're calling plays like last night, as Greg Roman was, and you don't have to worry about if the offense is going to be explosive or if they can put up points, now you use the entire toolbox. And that is what I think is happening to this defense. So for all of our fans that watch NFL Live, the people that hear us talk about football, that is how offense directly impacts defense and how you go about playing it. And it works that way on both sides of the floor. You cannot be a pressure-based team when your offense is not putting up points. It puts you in such a bad way as a defense to give up 2 or 3 explosive plays, and the game may be over.
This is what I'll give you. They've become less aggressive on early downs offensively. I will give you that. They signed 4 dudes to huge contracts, and the interior of their offensive line and the interior of their defensive line. And right now, none of them are playing good enough.
Yeah, they have those great receivers. Carson Wentz just not decisive in any way. So, Mina, I thought of you. Wait, are we still talking about this, or Mina, can we move to the Chargers? Because your guy Joe Alt played last night, and I know you changed your pick last Friday when he wasn't playing to pick the Colts, but he made a big difference. Talk to me about the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to watch any Chargers game where Justin Herbert is not the quarterback being most terrorized, but that was the dynamic in this one. They talked about the Viking side of it and the lack of pass protection. With Herbert, I think the relative lack of pressure can be attributed to a few things. One, undoubtedly the return of Joe Alt, stabilizing force, also in the run game. Two, Herbert consistently finding answers versus the blitz, sometimes with his legs, by the way, as you see there. And then the play-action passing attack, which, sorry, by the way, if you're taking a shot every time we say play-action on this show, you're probably drunk, but it was the story of the offense in this game. They had the highest play-action rate of the season,
Shocker.
47% of the time. The bomb to Gadsden, who is the real deal, by the way, that tight end.
Yes.
They got under center, put heavy bodies on the field, and boom, got the matchup. He went over the top. That's the Chargers' identity on offense. We saw at the beginning of the season. They want to get heavy. They want to play action off of it. And then in the second half, they ran the ball really well out of it.
Yeah, shout out to Kamani Vidal, okay? He wasn't in the highlight, but man, 117 rushing yards and a touchdown from your third string running back. All right, you guys, so much more to chat about and come on this. So, who will the Jets start at quarterback on Sunday against the Bengals? Well, that's a mystery. They are 0-7 with Justin Fields as their starter. He was benched at halftime on Sunday, but his backup, Tyrod Taylor's been limited in practice due to a knee injury, and Jets head coach Aaron Glenn asked about it.
If there was a game today, could Tyrod Taylor physically play?
He is limited, all right, today, and he is questionable, and I like the way those guys are trending.
So are you able to tell us who's going to? Can you tell?
I cannot tell you that.
But is it because you don't want to, or because?
That's exactly it.
But with Tyrod's situation questionable, doesn't that play into this potentially?
That's exactly why I'm not telling you, because I don't want to.
No, but I understand that. But I mean, is it partly because of the injury?
That's exactly why I'm saying it, because I don't want to.
Does the
I don't know how many times I got to answer you that. It's not going to change.
Do the players know who the quarterback is?
That's going to be between me and the players.
He doesn't want to. Dan, what do you think of Glenn there?
I'm on Aaron Glenn here on his side. So just for the context, you're playing the Bengals, right? Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields, very different style quarterbacks. And so if you come out and say Tyrod Taylor's the starting quarterback, you're giving Cincinnati significantly more amount of practice time to focus on Tyrod Taylor and not have to spend a ton of time dealing with quarterback run or how they're going to deal with Justin Fields within the pocket. These aren't my words. These are other people's words. But defensive coordinators have said, listen, we teach our guys that Justin Fields is the starting quarterback. When he's back there, he's a running back. We got to treat him and attack him and tackle him like he's a running back. And they spend time in practice focusing on that. So if you're Aaron Glenn, why would you give the Bengals some type of information and help their practice plan, whether it's going to be Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields? Two very different quarterbacks, two very different styles of defense that I would expect to be deployed against them. I think that Aaron Glenn is doing the right thing for the team here, trying to not make sure that he gives the Bengals any type of advantage.
Yeah, well, we'll know soon enough, won't we? The Steelers definitely know who's going to be playing quarterback for them on Sunday. Obviously, it's Aaron Rodgers facing the Packers for the first time since leaving them for the Jets a few years ago. Rodgers has never faced his former team, and when you compare Packers quarterback Jordan Love and Rodgers' numbers since he left Green Bay, they are surprisingly similar, pretty much across the board. Only major difference, obviously, that's in the win column. We have Love 12 more wins as a starter when Rodgers missed all of that first Jets season back in 2023. All right, what does Rodgers need to watch out for when he plays this Packers defense, Dan?
Yeah, holding the ball past 2.5 seconds. You know, he's the third fastest quarterback in the NFL when getting rid of the football, right around 2.6 seconds. I think he's going to have to be faster than that this week. I mean, if you just watch Micah and how quickly he either puts pressure on the quarterback or gets to him, it's going to happen quicker than Aaron's been getting rid of the football. 2.3 seconds, and you got to move off the spot by himself once again. I mean, this is going to be less than that. Right now, plays over dead. That's the second and a half. And the problem is you as an offense, if you start to trade and pay too much attention to Micah Parsons and you go double team him, we want a left guard and left tackle, well, then it creates all those one-on-ones opposite. And then players like their internal rush guys or Rashawn Gary can get home. So the challenge for Aaron Rodgers and this Steelers offense is going to be when they pass the football from the pocket, it has to get out of the quarterback's hands in less than 2.5 seconds, or that number one edge player is going to be creating all kinds of problems for their offense.
So my note for the Packers defense was make him hold the ball longer than 2.5 seconds, man. Because that has actually been a weakness of theirs, right? On throws of 2.5 seconds or less, they're 25th in EPA per play. You really saw that on display versus Dallas. They were able to mitigate
Cowboys,
that pass rush in Micah Parsons to some degree by Dak just releasing the ball lightning fast. And to that end, something I would really advocate that Green Bay do in this game, challenge Pittsburgh at the line of scrimmage. I thought the Steelers' worst performance of the year was against Seattle. Going back and looking at that game, Seattle pressed them 30% of the time, which is way more than they normally do, but they understood. We've got to make Aaron Rodgers hold on to the football. We have to take away those quick access throws. Green Bay normally does not play press. I would really consider doing so in this game more because otherwise you risk death by 1,000 paper cuts the same way you did against Dallas.
Okay, can we talk about that Steelers defense for a sec? Swaggo embarrassed by the Bengals last weekend. What do you need to see from them against Green Bay on Sunday night?
Get your butt down.
Well, one, I think it's one of the most disappointing units in football this year because we thought this team was competent quarterback play away from actually having a chance to make a deep playoff run. This was what was eye-popping for me last week. Chase Brown almost averaged 10 yards a carry against this defense. And I know we got enamored with Joe Flacco. He played a phenomenal game. The amount of throws that he was able to make to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, obviously seeing them make explosive plays. But up front is not somewhere where you think the Pittsburgh Steelers gives up this type of yardage in the run game. Cincinnati couldn't run on Kenilworth Middle School. That's my middle school I went to before they played against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
If you were there, they could.
And now that confidence came back and they were able to go downfield. Josh Jacobs got going a little bit late in that Arizona game with some physical runs. At the end of that game, he became a bludgeoning guy. I think you got to test it. When you see almost 10 yards a carry given up, you have to have that be a part of what Green Bay offensive game plan needs to be until they tell you they got it fixed.
Big fella, let me ask you a question. So, there's two kinds of defensive lines for people at home, essentially. There's that penetrating defensive line, like get upfield, or there's kind of that two-gapper, right? Like you read.
Yep.
The Steelers are a little bit more of a reading defensive line, but what I see on tape in the run game, fella, is they're so upright doing it. So can you talk to us about the challenge of having to be that two-gap reading defensive lineman, but also trying to stay low and win the leverage game? Is that something that can happen at the same time? Because they're not doing that well.
Yeah, Dio, it can happen at the same time. It's you've heard me say this before. Change the line of scrimmage. On your initial burst, you need to be trying to knock offensive linemen back. First of all, that's the key to any defense. Even if you're in a 3-4, standing up looking at the line of scrimmage doesn't help you. You got to get those guys' feet moving backward in order to give the running back less time to make decisions and cuts. If you go back to that package that we showed with Chase Brown, he had a lot of time to survey at the line of scrimmage and stick his feet in the ground because the line of scrimmage wasn't being dented. You want to offset. And then the other thing, too, is when you have attacking defensive fronts, your linebackers are really catch-all guys. They have to respond to however those guys are playing blocks. Sometimes between Queen and these linebackers, they are confused about where to insert because guys aren't being disciplined in where they're standing their gaps, and that gives up and leads to big runs as well. They need to become a little bit more disciplined up front. I think they have the guys to do it and the veterans to do it. And sometimes when you're not stopping the run, you get greedy and you start pressing, trying to make plays for tackles for losses instead of just reacting and playing blocks and getting people on the ground to make them go the long, hard way. I hope that they get this fixed with the veterans that we know on that defensive line. But the way this league goes, you will be tested when you give up almost 10 a carry on the ground.
Yeah, I think this Packers run game with all the motion is just going to give that second level of the Steelers defense a lot of problems. As far as the passing game goes, to put it bluntly, just don't throw at Joey Porter Jr., man. I like everyone else, has really struggled in coverage on this team. And the Packers, of course, have what we call a democratic offense. You can pick any different player any day of the week. Tucker Kraft has been the focal point. I think he could continue to be in this game, but I think they have so many advantages on that side of the ball as long as Jordan Love doesn't turn it over, which he has largely avoided this season.
Okay, so let's look at our picks, and I'm just saving y'all from the gong. I'm the only one on the Steelers.
Where be a dog, Hannah?
You know what? I think that defense plays better at home,
That's a teammate.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just doing it for y'all.
They are. I'm worried about that pass rush from Green Bay.
All right, there you go. All right, moving on. We are going to build our play sheet presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Dan, over under 1.5 passing touchdowns for Rodgers. What do you think?
I'm going to go under. I think he plays well, but I actually believe that what Mina pointed out, I expected this Green Bay secondary defense to play way more physical on the perimeter, not give a ton of easy throws, and make sure he stays in the pocket in the red zone. I think he gets one, but I'm not giving him two.
Mina, you see our guy Jonathan Taylor there leading the league in rushing by over 100 yards. Does he go over under 101.5 yards against the Titans?
I'm going under. I'm sick about it because I think he's going to be dominant. I think he has been dominant, but 101 is just such a high figure. It's hard for me to pick the over there, even against this Titans defense. That's just too high of a number for me.
Okay, all right. Swaggo, we just heard Jets head coach Aaron Glenn not naming his quarterback. They haven't scored a touchdown in each of their last 2 games. Do they go over or under 19.5 points for the team total against the Bengals?
I'm going over, and I think me and Mina both wrong. Jonathan Taylor 1 run away from going 70, and 19.5 seems like they're trying to get 100 in New York on that offense and what they've been doing here recently. But I'm going to go over. People stick with us. I think we're going to end up being right, but I'm scared to death.
Yeah, I hope you are, because a $10 bet on this particular play sheet wins you almost $60. So go for it. Be bold. Come on. These are the experts. By the way, Snoop Huntley is the backup there. Also, the Falcons could be without Michael Penix Jr. with a knee injury as they host the Dolphins. A.J. Brown not practicing for the 3rd day in a row. He has been ruled out for Sunday's game with the Giants. The Jets winless and without Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner against the Bengals, and no Jeffrey Simmons or Calvin Ridley for Tennessee against the Colts. And Andy Dalton starts in place of Bryce Young as the Panthers host the Bills, which now brings us to locks and keys, where we tell you something that we guarantee that'll happen, that'll be a lock, and something that will play a big role in determining the outcome, which is called a key. So we're going to start with the Bills at the Panthers. Swagoo, what's your lock in this one, buddy?
Look, I know the Panthers have really done a good job against the run. The pass game is where they struggled at times, but James Cook has to go over 100 yards, y'all. Like, the rushing needs to reacclimate itself for the Buffalo Bills. Some explosive plays out of the backfield. I still worry when Josh gets high volume throwing downfield. It still lends itself to me sometimes with throwing the ball to the other team. But ultimately, this team balanced, and the way that they were able to run the football with James Cook out of the backfield and create explosives made it a great offense and made them Super Bowl contenders. I think they get back to that against the Panthers.
So, Dan, what's the key?
The key is this Buffalo defense versus Rico Dowdle. Now, one, coming off the bye, Buffalo's played a little bit less nickel by defensive backs this season than they have in the past. Is that going to be the case? But here's where this run defense is. They're the 2nd best defense in the NFL when it comes to getting penetration, hitting the running back behind the line of scrimmage. They're also the worst defense in the NFL in yards after contact, giving up almost 5 yards to guys after contact. So in this bye week, have they figured that out to not only create that penetration, but find ways to get that back on the ground and tackle better? Man.
Well, here's the thing. Sean McDermott, he's 8-0 after bye weeks, and we are all cue the gong. Ooh, I think that's only our 2nd gong of the show now. Yeah, we're all on the Bills. Never fear, because we think differently. I know, right? This next game, Niners at Texans. Dan, what's your lock for this one?
Whoever wins the battle on the edge is going to win this game. Hall of Famer Trent Williams, who I know Andrew Workwith said could go down as the greatest left tackle ever versus Danielle Hunter. That is an elite premier matchup. And Danielle Hunter has been outstanding this season when it comes to rushing the passer. And Trent Williams somehow is continuing to be Trent Williams. That is going to determine how well San Francisco can play or how well Houston defensively can keep them in this football game. That elite matchup one-on-one.
Mina, what is the key in this one?
I think for San Francisco, it's taking that pass rush out of the game by winning on early downs and running the football the way they did Atlanta. This run game has been underwhelming this year, but finally got back on track. We talked earlier this week about their power run game with McCaffrey and all the guards pulling. If they can do that against the Texans defense that's better against the pass than the run, then they'll be in 3rd and short, 3rd and manageable. And the quarterback won't be a sitting duck back there versus this pass rush. So I think that run game on early downs and who wins in that regard is going to go a long way towards determining this.
Okay, so looking at our picks, and once again, I'm saving y'all from the gong, okay? I got to go.
Oh, thank you.
I got to go the Texans at home.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. All their losses have been by one score, Mina, okay? All right, so we'll see.
You biased,
This
Anna.
feels close.
You biased. on
I'm
this
trying, man. You guys, I'm here for you. All right, it is time for AI-generated fantasy insights presented by IBM. This week, George Kittle is number 9 on the Watson X Boom list of players predicted to overperform. He is projected with a high of 11.7 fantasy points, and I actually sat down with him ahead of Tight Ends Day to talk about the importance of that position. Here's a sneak peek. NFL Live is brought to you by Springsteen. Deliver Me From Nowhere, now playing only in theaters. Baby, we were born to run, or born to throw the football. The Cowboys, how do they plan to attack the Broncos Sunday in Denver? Dak Prescott, he's thrown 3 touchdowns with no picks in 3 straight games. He has the 3rd lowest sack percentage in the NFL, but that Broncos defense has the highest sack percentage in all of the land. All right, Mina, take us inside the strength on strength chess match. What are you watching for there?
Yeah, I'm so fascinated to see how Vance Joseph, the Broncos defensive coordinator, approaches this game. That defense plays a ton of man coverage, which has been a death knell against this Cowboys offense this year. Dak Prescott, 92 QBR against man coverage. Of course, with Pickens, that was hard. Now with Lamb and Pickens, it's a challenging proposition. The Broncos defense, however, has shown a willingness to mix it up. I think back to the Eagles game where they actually played way more zone. So I think that's something Joseph will consider. I also think, however, when they do play man, I would consider a 1-double approach, the classic New England approach where you would put Surtain on their number 2. It feels weird calling Pickens that, and have him double CeeDee Lamb, but that's going to be a really challenging proposition. So I do think he's got to change up some of his tendencies, because if they just line up and play man, the Cowboys will slice him up.
Yeah, let's talk about this Broncos offense now, right? Because they're coming off that stunning quarter, 33 points. How can the Cowboys prevent Denver from building off of that comeback, Swaggo?
Well, first and foremost, Dio and Mina, don't rush 3, or I'm gonna break the TV screen at my house. That's number 1, because Bo Nix is great with his legs. The rush kind of woke up for Dallas, and it was some creative pressure through Eberflus, but also it was Jadeveon Clowney got home, and you saw this team put the Washington Commanders under a lot of duress when it came to drop back passing. If they can try to recreate that, but you got to be smart about it, because Bo Nix's legs came in to play a big time in that 4th quarter as well, with him either extending plays or taking off and running. So I'd be interested in seeing their rush plan. But if they can get some pass rush, right, with those ball hawking DBs that they have on the back end, we saw one turn into a pick 6. I think they'll have a chance to stifle Denver enough. Denver hasn't been great on offense this year. They've had spurts and times where they've looked really good as a unit, but consistency throughout the duration of a game has been an issue with them. Dallas is that one team where you may find yourself down 30 if you don't get offense going until the 4th quarter.
You think I'm fixing to let you just slide on that bow leg?
Bow legs.
You said bow legs. Oh, man.
Baby.
He said bow legs.
Hey, great fantasy name.
You saying bow legs just sounds so much cooler than when I say it, so I got nothing. This bow legs.
Hey, look at our picks. We're split. I have a real score there, though, Dano. I tried. I mean, Dan, 20-17 all day long. Swaggo, how you feeling about your Tigers?